If your heels have been cracking and bleeding no matter what you put on them, I need you to keep watching. Because nothing you put on the outside of your feet will ever fix them. Not the creams, not the balms, not the special socks, not the pumice stones. And despite what every doctor has told 70% of patients over 60, the cracks are not a skin problem. They are a circulation problem. The blood that is supposed to keep the bottom of your feet alive has been slowing for years, and the cracks are what happens when blood can no longer reach the place that needs it most. In our village outside Kyoto, the old healers had a saying. They said the feet are the quietest part of the body, and when the feet begin to speak, you must listen. They knew that when an old woman's heels began to split open in dry, deep lines, when the skin would not soften no matter what oil she rubbed into it, the blood was no longer arriving the way it once did. And they knew exactly what to do. Not a cream, not a peel, a soak. 3 things added to hot water sat in for the length of an evening conversation that called the blood back down to the feet and gave the skin a chance to live again. Our grandmothers never had to ask why their remedies worked. They worked because they treated the body, not a label on a bottle. But somewhere along the way, the Western pharma selling medicine forgot that healing was the goal. They started selling thick foot creams for a problem the cream cannot reach. They started selling pumice stones and electric foot files for skin that splits because the blood has gone elsewhere. They sell you what manages the symptom for a month because a month later the cracks are back and you have to come back and buy more. A cure would empty their shelves. Today, I am going to show you what is really happening at the bottom of your feet, why no cream has ever worked and never will, and the 3-ingredient evening soak that brings the blood back, softens the cracks, and lets your feet live again. You know, the small surrenders. You did not decide to make them. Your feet decided for you. You stopped wearing the slippers without backs. The ones you used to slide your feet into when you got home from work. Now you wear closed shoes even inside the house because the cold of the floor has started to hurt feet that used to feel nothing. There is a moment in the evening when you sit at the edge of the bed and look at the bottom of your foot. You see the deep groove that runs across the back of your heel. You touch it lightly. You see the dried blood from earlier in the day that you did not notice when it happened. You did not feel it open. You did not feel it bleed. That is what scares you most. You stopped going to the public bath. You used to go once a week. You used to love it. Now you cannot imagine taking off your socks in a room full of people. You stay home. You bathe alone. You tell yourself it is fine. When you mentioned all of this to your doctor, what happened? You got told it was dry skin. You got handed a sample of a thick urea cream. You got told to drink more water. You got told to be patient. You got told it was a normal part of aging. And for some people, those things help a little. For most people over 60, they do almost nothing because the dryness was never the real story. The blood that used to nourish your skin has been retreating from your feet for years, and no one ever told you that was even possible. Let me show you what is really going on. Before we go any further, tell me your age in the comments and tell me one sentence about the moment you first realized you were hiding your feet from people. I read every single comment on this channel. Now let me show you what is happening underneath that cracked skin. Let me tell you about a woman from my village. I will call her Hane, 74 years old. A retired seamstress who spent 46 years bent over a sewing machine, making wedding kimonos for the daughters and granddaughters of half the families in our valley. She still keeps a small wooden box of buttons her own grandmother gave her in 1959. For the last 3 years, Hane had stopped coming to the village bathhouse. The bathhouse is where the older women of our valley have gathered every Wednesday evening since long before I was born. It is where we talk, where we hear what is happening in each other's families, where we drink tea afterward in the small room next to the bath. Hane had not come once in 3 years. The reason she had stopped was her heels. The cracks on the backs of her feet had become so deep that she was ashamed for anyone to see them. The bathhouse requires bare feet. She could not bring herself to walk across the wooden floor with her heels exposed, so she stopped coming. The other women asked after her. She always said she was busy. She was not busy. She was hiding. She had tried many things. A thick foot cream from a department store in Kyoto for the equivalent of $50. A heated paraffin wax kit her son brought her from America. a pair of moisturizing silicone socks that her daughter ordered, a pumice stone she used so often that she eventually wore through the skin and made one of the cracks bleed badly enough that her daughter found her crying in the bathroom. What was overlooked was something her doctor never thought to look at. When I sat with Hanai in her kitchen and looked at her feet, I noticed three things. Her toes were cool to the touch even though the room was warm. The skin on the tops of her feet had a faint blue undertone. And when I pressed my thumb against the side of her toe, the color took almost 5 seconds to return. The blood was not reaching the bottom of her body the way it should. The cracks were the visible part of a much quieter problem. Within 10 days of starting the soak I am about to show you, the bleeding stopped. Within 3 weeks, she came back to the bathhouse for the first time in 3 years. The other women did not say anything about her feet. They poured her tea. They asked her how she was. So how is it possible that something so simple worked when $50 of cream and $100 of pumice and silicone had failed her? The answer is in what is happening to the blood that travels to the bottom of your feet and what is happening much deeper inside your gut that no doctor ever bothered to check. What Hanai's doctor never checked for was the same thing they never check in anyone over 60. Once you understand it, you will see why nothing else has worked for you either. Place your hand on the back of your heel right now. Feel the skin. That skin was made to be soft. It was made to carry you across the wooden floor of a house, across the warm stones of a garden, across the cold earth of a winter morning, and to do it without breaking. It does not crack because it is old. It cracks because the body, in trying to protect itself, has slowly stopped sending blood there. In our tradition, the old healers said the body is wise. When the heart begins to tire, when the vessels begin to stiffen, when the work of pushing blood through the whole body becomes harder, the body chooses. It keeps the blood where it is needed most. It protects the brain. It protects the heart. It protects the organs near the center of the body. And it allows the parts at the edges, the parts farthest from the heart, to receive less. The bottom of your feet sits at the end of the line. After about age 60, 3 things change at once that make the line longer and weaker. The blood vessels in the legs lose some of their elasticity, which means they cannot push blood through with the same force. The valves inside those vessels, which keep blood from flowing backward, begin to leak slightly. And the small capillaries near the surface of the skin in your feet, which are the smallest blood vessels in your entire body, slowly close themselves off because they are not being used the way they once were. A capillary that does not deliver blood for long enough simply stops trying. The skin on your heel is alive. Every cell of it needs to be fed. It needs warmth, which comes from blood. It needs water, which comes from blood. It needs the small nutrients that repair tiny daily damage, which come from blood. When the blood stops arriving, the skin does the only thing it can do. It dries. It thickens. It becomes hard because hard skin needs less than soft skin. The hardness is the body's quiet attempt to protect itself. But hard skin cannot stretch. So when you walk, when you stand, when you take a step in any direction, the hardened skin pulls against itself and splits. The cracks are not damage. They are the line where the body could no longer pretend. This is why cream has never worked. Cream cannot send blood somewhere it has stopped going. Cream sits on top of skin that is starving from underneath. You can put the most expensive cream in the world on a foot that is no longer receiving blood, and the cream will sit there until it dries, and the skin underneath will be exactly as starved as it was before. But this still does not explain why your circulation got weaker faster than it should have. What is causing your body to pull blood away from your feet in the first place? That answer is in a different place entirely. The answer is in your gut. And before you scroll away thinking your gut has nothing to do with the blood in your feet, I want you to understand something. The gut is where your blood is fed. Every nutrient that travels through your circulation, every mineral that keeps the blood vessels supple, every compound that keeps inflammation low, comes from what your gut absorbs. When the gut is healthy, the blood it sends out is rich and clean. When the gut falls out of balance, the blood it sends out is poor and inflammatory. And poor inflammatory blood is exactly what stiffens vessels, narrows capillaries, and quietly withdraws from the bottom of your feet. In our tradition, the old healers in our village always treated the belly before they treated anything else. They said a clear belly meant clear blood, and clear blood reaches every corner of the body. They did not have the modern words for what they understood, but they were right. By the age of 60, the average gut has lost roughly half of the beneficial bacteria it had at 30. The bacteria that used to break food down gently, absorb minerals cleanly, and keep the lining of the gut intact are gone, replaced by less helpful species that thrive on processed food, antibiotics, and stress. When the gut bacteria shift, three things happen that show up as cracked heels within months. The first is that the gut lining itself begins to leak. Small fragments of undigested food and bacterial waste pass into the bloodstream where they do not belong. The body recognizes them as foreign and produces low-grade inflammation in response. That inflammation travels through every blood vessel in your body, including the ones in your feet, slowly stiffening them. The second is that nutrient absorption becomes incomplete. Magnesium, which keeps your blood vessels relaxed and open, is absorbed at a lower rate after 60. Zinc, which the skin uses to repair itself, is absorbed less efficiently. Without these minerals, the vessels stiffen and the skin loses its ability to heal even when blood does reach it. The third is the most important. Your gut needs three things to come back into balance and to send rich blood out into the body. The good bacteria themselves, what people call probiotics. The fiber those bacteria feed on, what we call prebiotics, and the healing compounds the bacteria produce when they eat, what science now calls postbiotics. Think of it as the seed, the soil, and the rain. You can have one without the others, but nothing grows. You need all three. When the good bacteria are missing, or the fiber that feeds them is missing, or the compounds they produce are missing, the inflammation continues, the vessels keep stiffening, the blood keeps retreating from the feet, and the heels keep cracking deeper every season. As long as the gut keeps sending inflammatory blood through your circulation, the cracks keep regenerating no matter what cream you buy. So how do we fix both layers at once? How do we call the blood back to your feet tonight and quiet the inflammation that has been pushing it away? That is what I'm about to show you. Now let me show you the three things that fix both layers at once, starting tonight. 3 ingredients, 1 basin, 20 to 30 minutes, once a day in the evening. All of them already in your kitchen or 2 minutes away at the corner store. The first thing is hot water, not warm, hot. As hot as you can comfortably hold your feet in without pain. About 4 to 6 inches of water in a basin, deep enough to cover both feet above the ankle. Hot water does something almost nothing else can do. It opens the closed capillaries at the surface of your skin. The capillaries that have been shutting down for years respond to heat. They reopen. Blood begins to flow into them again, sometimes for the first time in months. This is the very first step in calling circulation back to your feet. You might be wondering whether hot water will burn the cracked skin or make the cracks worse. The answer is no, as long as the water's hot but not scalding. The test is simple. Pour the water, dip the back of your hand in for 2 seconds. If you can keep it there comfortably, the temperature is right. If you have to pull your hand out, it is too hot. Add cool water until it passes the test. The first time your feet enter the water, you will feel a deep warmth begin to spread up through your toes and into your arches within the first minute. That warmth is the blood returning. The second thing is 1 full cup of Epsom salt. Stir it into the hot water until it dissolves. Epsom salt is not regular salt. It is magnesium sulfate. The magnesium absorbs directly through the skin of your feet and travels into the small blood vessels nearby. Magnesium is the mineral your blood vessels need most to relax and stay open. The stiffened, narrowed vessels in your feet have been low in magnesium for years. The soak delivers it directly, bypassing the gut entirely, which is why people who have not absorbed magnesium properly in years can suddenly feel the change after a single soak. In Japan, my grandmother used to mix mineral salts into our bathwater every evening of winter. She did not have a word for what it did, but she said it helped the cold leave the body. She was telling the truth in the language she had. The first time you soak with Epsom salt, you may notice your feet feel almost too warm for a few minutes after you take them out. That heat is the blood finally circulating freely through tissue that has been cold for years. Welcome it. Stand on a clean towel and let it pass. Let me tell you about another person from my village, a man I will call Kenji, 78 years old, a retired apple farmer who still walks his orchard every morning, even though his son took over the harvest 15 years ago. He still keeps the small folding knife he used to prune his trees in the pocket of his coat. Kenji came to me because he had stopped being able to walk the full length of his own orchard. The pain was not in his hips, where his doctor told him it must be. It was in the bottom of his feet. The cracks at the backs of his heels had become so deep that every step on uneven ground sent a sharp pain up through his leg. He had stopped walking past the first row of trees. He told himself the orchard was his son's now. He did not believe his own excuse. He had been to 2 doctors. He had been given a stretching routine that did nothing. He had been told to buy better shoes, which he did, 3 pairs, none of which helped. He had been given a prescription cream that he used for 2 months. The cream did nothing because his feet were not dry. They were starving for blood. Within 12 nights of starting the soak, Kenji walked to the far end of his orchard for the first time in 2 years. He did not tell his son. He stood at the last tree for a long time. Then he walked back. The third thing is 1/2 cup of raw apple cider vinegar with a piece of fresh ginger root added in. Pour the vinegar in. Then take a piece of fresh ginger about the size of your thumb, slice it into 4 or 5 thin pieces with no need to peel it, and drop the slices directly into the hot water. The combination of the two does work that neither one can do alone. The raw apple cider vinegar, the cloudy kind with the strands floating in it, the one called the mother, contains acetic acid that gently softens the dead, hardened layer of skin on top of the cracks. Cream cannot reach what is underneath this layer because the layer is closed. The vinegar opens it without damage slowly over the 20 minutes the way nothing else can. The fresh ginger is the part our village healers swore by. Ginger contains natural compounds that gently stimulate the smallest blood vessels at the surface of the skin. It is one of the few things on earth that can persuade closed capillaries to reopen from the outside. The soak carries the ginger compounds into the skin of your feet, where they meet the magnesium from the Epsom salt and the softened skin from the vinegar, and all 3 work together to call blood back into tissue that has been deprived for years. By the way, you should know one thing that almost no one mentions. After about 10 minutes in the soak, you may feel a tingling, almost like pinpricks along the bottom of your feet. Do not be alarmed. That tingling is the small nerve endings waking up. They have been dormant in the cold, blood-starved tissue for so long that the return of warmth and circulation feels strange. The tingling passes within a few minutes on its own. It is one of the first signs that the soak is working. Now, the exact sequence. Fill a basin with 4 to 6 inches of hot water. Add 1 full cup of Epsom salt and stir until it dissolves. Add 1/2 cup of raw apple cider vinegar with the mother. Add 5 thin slices of fresh ginger root. Stir gently. Sit in a comfortable chair somewhere quiet. Place both feet into the basin, fully submerged above the ankle. Stay there for 20 to 30 minutes. If the water cools too much during the soak, you can add a small amount of hot water from a kettle to keep the temperature steady. What you do during the soak matters less than that you stay in it. Read a book. Talk softly with someone in the room. Close your eyes and breathe. The soak does the work. You only need to stay still. After the soak, lift your feet out and pat them dry gently with a soft towel. Do not rub. The skin is now open and warm, and rubbing will damage the freshly softened surface. Sit for another 5 minutes with your feet bare on a clean towel and let them cool naturally back to room temperature. This slow cooling is part of what trains the capillaries to stay open. If you rush to put on socks while the feet are still hot, the capillaries close too quickly and you lose half the benefit. Do this once a day, every evening for 21 nights. By the 3rd night, the deepest cracks will look less inflamed. By the 7th night, the bleeding will stop. By the 14th night, the surface of your heel will be softer than it has been in years. By the 21st night, the cracks will have begun to close, and the new skin growing in their place will be the soft, healed skin you remember. This protocol calls the blood back to the surface. Within 3 weeks, the cracks will close. But the cracks will come back if your gut keeps sending inflammatory blood through your circulation. The soak handles what is on the outside. The inside is a different question. So how do you quiet the inflammation that started the problem? And the way I tend my own gut every single day, the way my grandmother in our village tended hers, is with kombucha. Your gut needs 3 things to come back into balance: the good bacteria, the fiber those bacteria feed on, and the healing compounds the bacteria produce when they eat. Most things give you one of those 3. Yogurt gives you bacteria but no fiber. A fiber supplement feeds bacteria you may not even have. Kombucha is one of the few things in the world that gives you all three at once: the live cultures, the prebiotic acids, and the postbiotic compounds the bacteria produce as they ferment. When those three things arrive together in the gut, the lining begins to heal, the inflammation begins to settle, the blood traveling through your vessels begins to clean itself, and the capillaries in your feet stop being pushed shut by the body's defenses. The cracks stop returning because the blood is no longer carrying the inflammation that drove them away in the first place. I make my own kombucha at home because I have the time and the knowledge. But for everyone watching online who can't brew their own, I give BoochBod Kombucha Gummies. The link is in the description, or you can search BoochBod Kombucha Gummies on Amazon. Now, let me tell you the part of the soak almost every person gets wrong. The mistake is the rush. Almost every person who tries this soak treats it like a task to be completed. They sit down, they put their feet in, they look at their watch, they wait for the 20 minutes to pass so they can get on with the evening. The whole time, their mind is somewhere else. They get out as soon as the timer goes off. They dry their feet quickly. They go to bed. And then they wonder why the cracks are not closing as fast as they hoped. I know what you are thinking. 20 minutes is 20 minutes. You did the soak. You followed the directions. The water was hot. The salt was added. What more could there be? There is more. The soak is not only about what is in the water, it is also about the state of your body while you sit in it. In our tradition, the women of our village did not think of a soak as a treatment. They thought of it as an evening. The bath was where the day ended. The body had to slow down, settle, breathe before the warm water could do its real work. A body that is rushing, anxious, holding tension does not absorb a soak the same way a body that is at rest does. I see this in person after person. A woman tells me she has been doing the soak for 2 weeks and the cracks are healing slowly. I ask her one question: what are you doing while your feet are in the water? She tells me she is checking her phone, watching the news, planning what to make for breakfast tomorrow. And there is the problem. The water is doing its part. Her body is fighting against it. The correction is simple. Before you put your feet in the water, take 3 slow breaths, settle into the chair. Decide that for the next 20 minutes, you will not check your phone, you will not turn on the television, you will not plan tomorrow. You will sit. You will breathe. You will let your shoulders drop. You can have a cup of tea beside you. You can have soft music. You can have nothing at all. The body, when it is calm, accepts the soak deeply. The body, when it is racing, lets the soak slide off the surface. The other version of this mistake is the water temperature. People let the water cool to lukewarm by minute 10, and they sit in cool water for the rest of the soak. Cool water does not open the capillaries. Cool water actually closes them. If you feel the water cooling, add a small amount of hot water from the kettle. The water should stay warm enough to feel alive against your skin the entire time. The last version of this mistake is stopping when the cracks look better. People do the soak for 10 or 12 nights, see real improvement, and decide they are healed. 2 weeks later, the cracks return, and they think the protocol failed. The protocol did not fail. The capillaries needed the full 3 weeks to retrain themselves to stay open without the daily prompt of the soak. Stopping at night 10 is like stopping a season of planting halfway through. The work was done. The harvest had not yet come. 21 nights, not 14. The protocol works because it is complete. Do the soak with a quiet body. Keep the water warm the whole time. Finish all 21 nights, and the heels that have shamed you for years will give themselves back to you. What you are really protecting is the next time you walk into the bathhouse and take off your socks without thinking. The next time you slide your feet into the slippers without backs because the floor no longer hurts you. The next time someone you love reaches for your foot under the blanket and you let them. Hanai is back at the bathhouse. Kenji walks his orchard again. It is never too late. The body at 70 and 75 and 80 still knows how to send blood to its own feet and heal its own skin, no matter how many years you have been adjusting your life around the cracks. If this video has helped you, subscribe to the channel so the next one finds you. I make these videos for the people who have been forgotten by the clinics, and the only way more of them find me is when good souls like you bring them along. Share this with the friend, the spouse, the parent who has stopped wearing open shoes, who keeps their socks on in bed, who has not let anyone touch their feet in years. Tell me in the comments how long it has been since you walked barefoot somewhere without worrying who might see you. I read every single comment on this channel. The BoochBod Kombucha Gummies I mentioned earlier are linked in the description, or you can search them on Amazon whenever you are ready. Until next time.